Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. I hope you are doing well today. Today what I want to talk to you guys about is something that is a very important topic that we really need to discuss, because this is something that people are very confused about. There's not a lot of understanding from a lot of people as to what tests they might need if they have Hashimoto's, why they might need those tests, and really the importance of getting these tests. And really, when you have Hashimoto's or any type of autoimmune condition, there's only so much that you can do, and that you can there's only so much that you can do to help yourself without actually getting some numbers and some quantitative testing to help give you very specific information as to what is promoting and contributing to your particular problems. Because every person's autoimmunity is going to be like a thumbprint. It's going to be different. Every person is going to have different reactivity to different foods, reactivity to different environmental chemicals, different types of infectious exposures, whether it be bacterial, viral, parasitic, or fungal. All these things contribute to and promote the autoimmune process. So when we change diet and we take temporary nutritional supplementation, that can be an upgrade and that can help people feel better. But a lot of people, they'll feel improved with dietary and supplemental changes, but they won't feel better. They won't be vibrant. They won't have the health that they really want. They might be improved, but there's still something going on. And in order to help you figure out what is going on, that's where you're going to have to get some testing. And I mean, I help people organize what all is going on with them. I give them direction. I try to help them put together dietary, lifestyle, and nutritional supplementation programs. But many of those people, we reach a point, or when I see them, they've already tried a lot of the trial and error things that I would explore. And the next step is that you're going to have to really get testing done to help you figure out what is driving your unique set of problems. So let's talk about some of the testing, because this is something that's really important, and I want you guys to understand some of the potential tests that I do, that I recommend in my office. So let's see, number one, if you have a thyroid problem, right? If you have a thyroid issue, the first test is typically going to be thyroid antibody testing, number one, to help you know whether or not you have Hashimoto's, which primarily we're talking about. I'm working with people that have hypothyroidism, not hyper. If it was hyper, we would look at the Graves antibodies. But in most people, 90% of people, approximately, the research tells us about 90% of people, they have hypothyroidism, low thyroid output because of Hashimoto's and an autoimmune process. So it's not a thyroid problem, it's an immune system problem where it's attacking the gland and destroying it. So thyroid antibody testing is where we're going to start to help us understand that. So that's going to be TPO antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies. Okay, TPO and TGB antibodies. That's typically what we're going to check. Now, if you guys want to know, we do offer. We do thyroid antibody tests for people all over the country, just to help them figure out if they have Hashimoto's or not. Because a lot of people have difficulty getting these labs. These labs through conventional doctors' offices, I've seen these cost $400 per marker. We get them for, I think it's $70 or $50 now. I can't even remember the price because they do adjust them, but about $70 or $50 just to assess those markers. So we can get those for you. If you have questions, you can call my office. You can go to drbradshuk.com, just drbradshuk.com, and on the page, if you scroll down, you'll see a box that says, hey, get your thyroid antibodies checked. And you click on that, and it will take you through the process of doing that. This is the first place to start. If you don't know if you have Hashimoto's, you definitely begin here. If you have Hashimoto's, interestingly enough, the thyroid antibody testing is not necessary to repeat unless you're considering doing it maybe year over year, because it's generally not accepted as a way to monitor the autoimmune condition to look at the antibodies. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I do a whole video on that somewhere. There's a video that I've done where I talk about thyroid antibody testing and how it's generally not accepted as a way to try and evaluate and determine the severity of the autoimmunity. Higher antibodies don't necessarily mean it's worse, because we see people all the time that have autoimmune thyroid conditions, no antibodies at all, because they're seronegative, so they don't make them, but they still have Hashimoto's, or they have suppressed immune systems and they can't make antibodies. So it's interesting that the amount of the antibodies does not necessarily correlate with damage to tissues, because antibodies don't cause the destruction. They're simply kind of like sticky notes or tags that stick to the tissue, and then other cells come and destroy it. So if you see antibodies in circulation, they're not stuck to the target tissues. And if they're not stuck to the target tissues, they're not doing any destruction. They're not marking it for destruction. Okay? It's just, we don't have, believe me, I would love nothing more than to say, hey, antibodies are high, you've got a bad autoimmune condition. Antibodies are low, it's much better. Just, I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. So, thyroid antibody testing to help you determine if you're autoimmune. The second test, so let's say someone comes to me, they know they're autoimmune, or we get this testing, we find out they're autoimmune. What's the next thing? Well, the next thing would be to get a very detailed health history so you can go through it with a fine-tooth comb and try to figure out, was there any point in time that triggered that person's autoimmunity? Is there anything that we can correlate? What are the factors that are diet and lifestyle related that could be contributing to an autoimmune process? Stress and things that have gone on in their life, past infections, medication or antibiotic usage, all these types of things, right? International travel, right? Might they have a parasite? What is going on? What may contribute? How were they even born? Were they cesarean or vaginal? If they were cesarean, then you know that they didn't go through the birth canal and get colonized by all the bacteria, right? There's all this is relevant. So that's what we do next. But testing-wise, after we looked at their history, let's say that we need to get some labs. What we would do very second is we would do a blood chemistry profile. So this would be number 2. Okay? Blood chemistry profile. Now, the blood chemistry profile that we get in our office with people is, listen, none of these test guides are considered medically necessary by any insurance company. Okay? Here's why. Medical necessity is a term that your insurance company uses to determine if they're going to pay for something or not. Medical necessity means if the ordering doctor is not following the guidelines set by your insurance company to order this test, then it's not necessary medically. And most of the time, you've got to understand, guys, they're trying to reduce costs. So just like when you go to your doctor and you want to get your thyroid checked, they're going to be like, well, we did. And you're going to be like, but wait, what'd you do? And they're going to be like, say, well, we did TSH. And you're going to tell your doctor, well, I want to get TSH and T4 and T3 and free T4 and free T3 and T3 uptake. And you're going to go on, and your doctor's going to look at you like you just hit them with a bat or something. They're going to look stunned because, first of all, they don't use those. Most general practitioners don't ever look at those numbers, ever. They just refer to the endocrinologist. Okay, so first of all, none of these are considered medically necessary because they don't follow what your insurance company thinks is reasonable. These are going to be considered experimental to your insurance company, and they're going to say it's not covered, and I'm sorry. And you know what, guys? Listen, it's just the way it is. Your insurance companies, they're not bad people. It's just healthcare is in a current state where these tests aren't considered necessary, and I consider them essential. But I'm not the insurance company, and they don't make their rules based on what I think or what other doctors think. They use guidelines, and they select the research, and they do what they think is best for the people that they cover. And I believe that everyone, whether they're in insurance or pharmaceuticals or doctors, I think that everyone's trying to help you. I really do. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that's like, how can we figure out, how to, I don't know, make money off of these people. So just know they're not considered medically necessary. So the blood chemistry panel profile that we order is extremely comprehensive. Looks at inflammatory markers, blood sugar markers, 10 thyroid markers, iron markers, and electrolytes, blood proteins, enzymes, liver enzymes, red blood cells, white blood cells, lipids, vitamin D, urinalysis, you name it. I mean, clotting factors like fibrinogen, several things. Helps us survey the overall physiology so we can get a better idea of, do we need to order any of these other advanced tests, okay? So it's a perfect starting place. You take this plus the history, and that helps you to give you much more specific direction. So this blood chemistry profile is the next thing that you do. Guys, in my office, we can get this profile, which I have seen years past, like 5 years ago. Doctors, I've seen people when they used to order it, when we were in network with a lab, and I did order it some through LabCorp, $2,500 for this panel. We can get it for $299 as of today. Now, if you're seeing this video and it's months later, it could be completely different. I don't know, but we get it for $299. that's a perfect place to start to give you good direction. And sometimes this profile plus your history gives you great direction. Okay, that might be all you need. I've helped a lot of people with just this and a good history, very good health history. Okay, now let's say that this blood profile, this chem profile comes back with high inflammatory markers. Let's say that some of your white blood cells are slightly shifted. That could suggest viruses too. And you're like, okay, there's something else going on and we don't really know what it is. We really need to consider getting additional testing. So what might we do? Well, we'd look at your health history and we'd say, well, you know what, in your health history, your digestive tract is not functioning well. There's maybe bloating, there might be constipation, maybe there's constipation and diarrhea. There's definitely GI tract dysfunction. This could be a sign of an infection of the gut. So maybe based on this profile, the next thing we might do is get a stool panel here, okay? And the stool panel, gut testing would help us to look at bacterial infections, viral infections. It would help us to evaluate parasitic infections and even fungal infections of the gut. It would show us the bacterial balance or imbalance in the gut. It would help us to identify and understand the local immune system and whether or not you have a good production of short fats or short chain fatty acids that help the gut heal. It's a very good test to help us evaluate what's happening in the gut. And this oftentimes we can find infections here, we can find yeast overgrowth, a lot of things that for one can cause problems with your gut and create leaky gut. But at the same time it can promote the immune response and an immune process which could promote Hashimoto's. So that's oftentimes the next place we go, okay? Now these tests all vary in cost, guys. These go from anywhere from $500 to, you know, if you go through, like I've seen it through the labs, I mean, I've seen them in the thousands. But the ones that we use are around $500 for the GI testing. It's a comprehensive parasitology profile. It gives you some good ideas. But this might be a reasonable next thing to consider. Okay. Now, let's say that we're definitely autoimmune, and we want to understand and try to work up the drivers of the autoimmune process. So remember, there are typically three categories that we're going to see that drive the autoimmune process, and that's going to be, remember, the drivers of the autoimmunity that we follow, that we evaluate, are going to be they're going to be food, food sensitivities, pathogens. Pathogens are bacteria, viruses, and parasites, and then fungi. And then, so these are pathogens, these are food sensitivities, and then 3 is going to be chemical reactivity. Chemical reactivity. Chemicals, environmental chemicals, metals, pathogens here, food sensitivities here. So these are things that we know are going to be things that we're going to drive autoimmunity. Now, definitely the gut, leaky gut, but that's typically driven by pathogens and things here. What else? These are all the things that we're typically going to use to evaluate like an autoimmune process. So if someone is autoimmune, I'm already thinking before I even look at any of their testing, there are some possibilities for testing here, especially if you want to be, as accurate and as specific as possible with any interventions. Some people are, they go on diets, but even the autoimmune paleo diets and these ketogenic diets and everything, all these different types of diets, they're not perfect. You could be reacting. Remember, your problems is as unique to you as a thumbprint, right? So it's very unique to you as my problems are unique to me. So everyone's going to have different reactivity to foods, pathogens, bacteria, chemicals. So what you do is, I know if someone's autoimmune, we go through maybe this process, we've done blood chem, we've looked at the gut, maybe we order a lot of these at once, that's not unreasonable. So stool testing, and then we might do food sensitivities, pathogens, and chemicals. Now, you'll see here, food sensitivities, let's say we go in this order, 3. The 4th priority might be food sensitivities. The 5th priority would probably be pathogens. 6th priority is probably going to be chemical reactivity. Because remember, these are the things, 4, 5, and 6, that we know drive autoimmunity. Now, I do want to say this. Well, let me finish this thought and then we'll get into the adrenals, because that's an important aspect of healing your gut, is looking at the adrenals. And this is there's no hard and fast rule to the order of this. Okay, there's not. It's like what is happening clinically, what has the person, how they responded in the past to other things they've done, what other testing have they had. So you might go through this process, look at the things driving the autoimmunity. Now, why would we look at these things? Because if we can identify the foods that you are reacting to, the unique foods like your thumbprint, then we can remove those from your diet specifically, because we can measure the immune response and know that you're reacting to tomato. But the other flip side of that is not only you remove the foods that you're reacting to, so you help to calm down the immune response, that opens up your diet, because there's probably foods that you've eliminated that you're not reacting to that you could have. Right? So it opens up diet and it helps us calm the immune response, which is what we're after, right? We're after dampening the autoimmune process so you don't have as much thyroid destruction, so the thyroid can function more optimally. So 5 would be pathogens. Now remember, pathogens are bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi. This is a blood test that measures your immune response to them. So if that's very high, then we're going to want to try and address those things and either kill them, remove them from the body, or dampen them if it's a virus, because you always live with viruses. So dampen them and really try to calm that down so the immune system's not chronically or activated for a long period of time. Again, decreasing the immune response, helping us to have a more optimal immune response, and with the goal of dampening the autoimmunity. Number 6, chemical and metal reactivity. So we know we can check and we can actually test the immune system's reactivity to environmental chemicals, several environmental chemicals, and metals. If we find that that's occurring, then we know we have a problem here that we need to address with removing exposure to these chemicals and metals, and we know that we need to work on trying to detoxify these from the body. But you can only detox, guys, once the gut's healthier. Okay? Once the gut is healthier. You don't jump straight into this. That would be a big mistake, because you could effectively try to pull these things and eliminate them and just end up redepositing them someplace else in your body that has a higher metabolism. It could be bone, it could be bone marrow, it could be the glands, it could be the brain. So if you've got a metal that's in your toe, leave it there, unless if it's not creating a problem, right? But if it is, then you want to only detoxify it once your intestinal permeability is healed, okay? So once your leaky gut is healed. So we might go through, and the way we can know if it's healed is we could get a barrier system test, like the intestinal permeability test, the blood-brain barrier test, but that's how we would know if you're ready for detox, is really looking at the intestinal permeability screen. So 5, 6, these would be the drivers of the autoimmunity right here primarily. Now I do want to mention this. A lot of times I'll get this test right here, the adrenal test, which will look at primarily, depends on what's happening clinically, what's clinically indicated based on your history, but this helps me to identify cortisol levels, which is critical. High cortisol or low cortisol for a long period of time will impair or decrease the ability of the gut or the lining of the gut to repair. The mucosal lining, the healing can be impaired with chronically elevated cortisol or chronically suppressed cortisol. So understanding what your adrenal glands are doing, which sit on top of the kidneys, right? They sit on top of the kidneys. They produce your catecholamines, your cortisol, your adrenaline. They can oftentimes be very fatigued with people, or they may have a decreased capacity to put out cortisol, or they may be in a state where they're really in alarm and they're putting out high levels of cortisol. Remember this key thing. The adrenals are always responding to something else. They are secondary. Whatever they're doing is secondary to something that's promoting them. Some form of stress, some chemical stress, whether it be inflammation. We check with the blood chem. Some type of food sensitivity, chemical reactivity. Some inflammatory process will always drive them. Emotional stress absolutely stimulates your fight or flight response, which will produce more cortisol and chronically push and stimulate the adrenals. If you have physical pain, that will do it. So all these things can contribute, guys, to fatiguing the adrenals. So we need to know if the cortisol levels are if they're normal for the day, and if you're producing it at a normal rhythm. So it should be higher in the morning, lower in the evening, and gradually come up through the night. If you're outside of that rhythm, guys, that's not good, because your brain, and in particular the hippocampus, a central structure, and technically it's the medial temporal lobe, okay? It's inside the brain, but it helps to dampen, it helps to regulate this rhythm of production. That's a brain-based mechanism that helps to control that rate and rhythm. So we utilize specific protocols to help support better rhythm of production of cortisol. If it's too high or if it's too low, we could use adrenal gland adaptogens, maybe like ashwagandha or rhodiola, some of those types of things. But the main thing to keep in mind is not to be super focused on the adrenals, but to be looking at what is stimulating them, what's causing the cortisol to be high or low, what's causing the cortisol to be off, what's driving that. And usually you're going to find food sensitivities, chronic infections, or something that's pushing that, okay? So cortisol, but this is really important, because if we can't normalize this, then we're going to have a really tough time healing the gut lining or the leaky gut, or any of the barrier systems, whether it be the blood-brain barrier or the lung barrier, okay? So really important. Let's say that's 7, okay? But reality, it could fall anywhere. Sometimes I do it earlier, and a lot of times I do it in combination with the hormones, because we can get hormones and these together. So sometimes I'll do the adrenals and hormones, which will look at numerous hormones that are made by your body, progesterone, all your estrogens, which would be like estrone, estradiol, estriol, testosterone, androstenedione, DHEA, and if none of those make sense, don't worry. That's my job. I just want to share it with you. So 7, maybe hormones would be 8, but a lot of times it's combined here with the adrenals. Okay, so that's going to be a pretty good workup. But there's a few more things. So we know that in the body, especially when we're talking about autoimmunity, when we're talking about something like Hashimoto's, the leading theory on it is that the gut wall breaks down and becomes permeable or leaky. So foods that you're consuming that are breaking down, or bacteria in the gut, can leak through the gut wall into the bloodstream and trigger an immune response. That immune response can cause your immune system basically to produce antibodies against the bacteria or the partially digested foods that are leaking into the bloodstream. And that will cause the immune system to launch an immune response against those things, produce antibodies against those things leaking in, which we would call antigens. It's just whatever. It's what it leaks into the bloodstream. Then your body would produce these antibodies to attach to them and mark them as foreign so other cells can come and destroy it. The problem is that a lot of foreign food proteins and bacteria and parts of the bacteria can look like our own tissues, and our immune system may start mistaking our own tissues for those things leaking into this leaky gut, okay? So it's really important that the barrier, the gut wall, is healthy and intact. So we can do barrier system testing here, which is very helpful, because one of the things that barrier system testing does, it helps us assess and determine the integrity of your gut wall, the integrity of your blood-brain barrier. So especially, with the gut wall, it's important because we want to have a very intact and healthy gut wall with no immune reactivity to it, so that we can start detoxifying chemicals and metals more safely. Okay, that's my approach. Really looking to see if the gut's intact, if we've cleared infections and done these things, is this barrier intact, so that we can start sending chemicals and things through the GI tract with a lower chance of it being reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Okay, so this is one of the barriers, would be like a leaky gut test here for the barrier systems. So you could do I'm just going to put LG, guys, leaky gut test, or we can do a blood-brain barrier test, BBB. Blood-brain barrier test is amazing because we can now look at it's very similar to the leaky gut or to the lining of the intestinal wall. The blood-brain barrier is composed of cells. It's one cell layer thick, just like the gut lining is. And we can actually see if there's an immune response against the different components of it, which can give us an idea of whether or not your brain is letting things into basically this barrier is letting things into the brain that shouldn't be there, which will trigger an inflammatory response and can promote all kinds of problems with the brain. If you have brain fog, memory issues, if you have a family history of Alzheimer's, dementia, any of those things, those are all reasons to consider getting a blood-brain barrier test as well, so that we can measure the integrity. Because once we get it tested the first time, we can follow up, let's say in 6 months or a year, and recheck it and see if we have indeed improved the integrity of the barrier system. If we haven't, we've still got work to do. But it gives you a great baseline. The leaky gut test I like because if there's different severities that we can identify from this test of leaky gut. And so I know that it might take, with one test result, it might take about 4 months to help the person heal their gut. Whereas with another finding, it could take 8 months or a year to heal the gut because it's more severe. So it also gives us an ability to prognose and help us determine how long this might take. So the barrier system tests are great. Now, one more thing I want to talk about, and there are other tests that we can do, but these are going to be more core. Number 10, genetic testing. Okay, DNA genetic testing, and in particular, we're going to look at SNPs. You know what SNPs are? It's a mouthful. Single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. You just call them SNPs. Genetic SNPs. Now, you can run like a 23andMe test. You can get all these things basically tested, and you get a report, and you get raw data. And from 23andMe, we can put it into all kinds of different programs to help us better understand what's going on. In my opinion, for most people, this testing is not important until you've done all these other things first. Because you can't have problems, like right here with the blood chem, you can't have problems with your foundational body chemistry and really improve some of the genetic uniquenesses or polymorphisms. Now, there are some that, yes, you could support, like the MTHFR SNP, but we can do that without even testing for it most of the time. We can just give people activated B vitamins, methylfolate, methylcobalamin, and we can already support some of those pathways. But this is something that I would definitely do. I would do after I've done a lot of these things. Now, there are other tests that we might do as well, like organic acids tests. We could look at what all are the other tests? Lots of tests. We could look at antibody panels to see if you're having a lot of symptoms and we're not really sure where they're coming from. Then we could just order a huge panel looking at a lot of different antibodies to see if your immune system's attacking your liver, your adrenal glands, your brain, your heart, your connective tissues, your bone. We can do a lot of other testing. But these are going to be more of the core tests. They're going to help us to really specifically investigate and best determine what's promoting your symptoms. So I wanted to share this with you guys so that you'd have a good idea. These tests really, what they do is they help us. The functional testing shows a trend towards disease. It doesn't necessarily, it's not there to identify pathology. These tests are really designed to help us better understand what's going on with your body so that we can help to start supporting it, hopefully before it reaches a stage of true pathology. It helps us to track progress. These tests give us a great amount of information on what is actually happening with your body. And we can retest. A lot of these do need to be retested at some point. Like if you have a gut test, a GI test, and you have a bacterial infection or a fungal infection, you need to run a protocol to kill it, and then you need to retest to make sure it's gone. If it's not gone, you need to run another protocol, and then guess what? You retest it. Adrenals, if your cortisol rhythm is all off, or your cortisol levels are too high or too low, you support it, you do all these things, you support it, and then you retest it. The most important test is the second one. And the reason for that is because the first test just tells you where you're at. The second test tells you whether or not your plan worked. It's really important, because otherwise the test is still there. So that's a test you would do a second time. Some of these other tests, yes, we would do some of them 2 times. I've already mentioned the blood-brain barrier and the leaky gut test. We definitely can get a baseline and then test it later to make sure that those barrier systems are intact and healthy so that we don't have problems with the immune system or the brain. This also, guys, this is something that's so huge, this helps to improve social support. I can't tell you guys how important social support is. Social support is critical with this type of health care. And why is it? Because your family has to be supportive of you. And so many of you have a problem that's invisible. We have invisible problems. It's you just feel tired, but they don't see a broken bone. They don't see a cut. They don't see a bruise. They don't see that. They just see someone that's saying that they're tired, but they can't see anything visibly wrong. That's a problem, because you can reach a point where you lose support from your family. So this improves social support. You get tests that show you their physical problems. You have someone articulate to your loved one, hopefully if you get this kind of testing and stuff done, that explains, they're there with you, explains what you find. And what ends up happening is you get more buy-in from them so that they are there to support you and help you on this journey of healing. So it improves social support. Is just huge. It's huge. It's one of the biggest ways that I see people fail. They don't have social support. They don't have, their family doesn't believe them, and they're constantly tearing them down. The people that do the best that I see are the people that either, if they have a significant other, that person is with them and actually shows up for their appointments and is there with them as a partner. We don't all have that, and that's okay. That's why we have support groups and we have all kinds of other things so that people can get the help that they need. But you have to be your own advocate, guys. You have to take your health back. You have to educate yourself. And ultimately, you have to be responsible for you, right? But that's what I'm trying to do, help people become their own advocates, take their health back, and be better partners with their doctors. Guys, I hope this has helped you out. If you guys need help, you can always go, right? You can always go to drbradshuk.com, right? And I do work with people all over the world. We work with people, all over the world, all over the country. We help people. We can get these tests done for most people. We can get blood testing done for most people, no matter where they are. So you can go to drbradshuk.com, go to application for care, and you can learn all about working with me. If you need other resources, guys, there are probably some links above this live stream that say, whatever, resources discussed, and there's tons of resources. If you want to understand about your labs and things that you might that you need to understand your thyroid levels better, we've got a guidebook for that. If you want to understand hair loss better, we've got a guidebook for that. If you want a dietary plan and program, we've got a program for that. So there's all kinds of stuff that we are trying to help you guys help yourself, first of all. But if you need help, if you want someone to help you figure this thing out, if you're tired of buying supplements and not necessarily feeling better or worse, and if you just can't find a rhyme or reason for why you go up and down with your symptoms, guys, you need someone to help you out. You really, really do. And if you need some help, we can work with you via phone, Skype, or FaceTime. We can do consulting. So just go to drbradshuk.com and application for care. But guys, I hope this helped you out. Please remember, help us help other people. Share this information. If you liked what I talked about here, then please do share this, because remember, anything that I see, when I see a lot of shares, I'm going to talk more about those particular topics. So, hey guys, Dr. Shuk, thank you for viewing our videos. I hope they help you out. If you want to, just subscribe to our channel somewhere here. You can watch a video that YouTube's actually selected for you, so hopefully it'll help you out. If you need any other information or resources, just look in the description. We've got links to our website, to our 9 lab test guidebook, and everything else that we do. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great